The night he laughed at me, the whole room laughed with him, and my own sister didn't even try to stop it. "So you still don't have a job?" Jason said, leaning back like he owned the place. "Man, at your age, that's embarrassing. No wonder Emma says you just stay home and live off her." Everyone laughed. Emma giggled nervously. "Jason, stop it," she said. But she was smiling too. I forced a smile while my chest burned, because Emma knew the truth. She knew why I had left my last job. She knew I was working every night while everyone slept. She knew how many interviews I'd failed because I refused to lie or cheat. But she didn't defend me. I looked at Jason. Perfect haircut, expensive watch, designer shoes. He worked at his father's company, got promotions without effort, drove a new car every year. He thought success was something you were born into. "Maybe he's waiting for a miracle," Jason added. "Or maybe he's just lazy." I smiled. "Maybe," I said quietly. "Or maybe I'm waiting for the right time." They laughed harder. But that night, when everyone went home, I opened my laptop and looked at my bank dashboard, and I whispered, "The right time is coming," because Jason didn't know what I had built, and Emma didn't know where she had destroyed. And when the truth came out, they would both beg me. But by then, I would be gone. 3 years earlier, I had a stable job in a tech company in Chicago. Good salary. Normal life. Then my boss asked me to approve fake invoices. Fraud. Illegal. He said everyone does it. If I didn't sign, I could leave. So I left. People called me stupid. After that, interviews failed. Money ran out. Friends disappeared. Relatives whispered. Even Emma started treating me like a burden. But in that darkness, I found something else. Freedom. I learned coding, marketing, trading, AI tools. I slept 4 hours a night. I built apps, most failed, some earned $10, some earned nothing. Then, one app started making $200 a month, then $500 a month, then $500. Then a client from New York City hired me for a project, then a startup I invested in got acquired. Slowly, quietly, I became rich. Not flashy rich, silent rich. Months after the party, Emma called crying. "Jason lost money," she said. "He invested in crypto and everything crashed. His dad's furious, he needs help." I stayed quiet. "Can you talk to him?" she asked. "Maybe you know some online tricks." I almost laughed. Online tricks. If she knew I owned a company registered in Delaware, if she knew I had investors from San Francisco, if she knew I was about to buy the very company Jason worked for, but she didn't know. So I said, "I'll see." A week later, Jason came to my apartment. No smirk. No jokes. Just fear. "Hey man," he said awkwardly. "Emma said you know about online stuff. I need help." I looked at him for a long time. The same man who laughed at me. The same man who called me useless. Now standing in my small living room, asking for advice. I opened my laptop slowly and smiled. "Sure," I said. "Let's talk about investments. Because the first step of revenge is letting them believe you're still weak." Jason sat across from me with his hands clasped together so tightly his knuckles turned white. A month ago, those same hands were pointing at me while he laughed, and now they trembled like a kid caught cheating on an exam. "Emma said you understand markets," he said, avoiding my eyes. I made a few bad calls. I thought crypto would bounce back. It didn't. My dad's furious. He says if I don't recover the loss, I'm out of the company." I nodded slowly like I was thinking, but inside I was watching him carefully, memorizing every word, every crack in his voice. "How much did you lose?" I asked. Jason swallowed. 300,000. I kept my face calm. $300,000. He said it like it was a number on paper, like something that could be fixed with advice from a man he used to mock, a man he thought was unemployed. I turned my laptop toward him and showed him a simple chart. Fake data. Fake strategy. Nothing illegal, nothing dangerous, just enough to sound smart. "You can't recover losses fast," I said. "You need patience. Diversify. Small steps." He nodded like a student listening to a professor. For the first time, Jason respected me. And it felt empty, because respect that comes from desperation is not real. When he left, Emma called immediately. "Thank you," she said. "I knew you'd help. Your family." Family. The word stayed in my head long after the call ended, because family doesn't laugh when strangers humiliate you. Family doesn't stay silent when someone calls you useless. But I said nothing, because my revenge wasn't ready yet. 2 weeks later, I got an email from a law firm in Boston confirming the final paperwork for my acquisition deal. The company Jason worked for, his father's precious pride, had been drowning in hidden debt. Bad loans, risky investments, unpaid taxes. They didn't know I had been quietly buying shares through a partner company. They didn't know I owned 40% already. They didn't know that in 3 more weeks, I would own it all. I stared at the screen for a long time. I remembered the night Jason left. I remembered Emma smiling. And I whispered, "Almost time." Emma started visiting more often after that. She'd bring coffee, ask about my health, pretend everything was normal. One evening she sat on my couch and said softly, "Jason's under a lot of stress. His dad is yelling every day. Maybe when things get better, we'll move to Los Angeles. Start fresh." I nodded. She looked around my apartment. "You know, you should really try harder to find a real job. Life isn't easy." I almost laughed. Because that same morning, my accountant from Seattle had sent me a report showing my investments crossed 8 figures. 8 figures. And my own sister was telling me to find a job. "Yeah," I said quietly. "I'll try." She smiled with relief, and I realized something. She didn't just think I was a failure. She needed me to be a failure, because if I succeeded, she would have to face how she treated me. The engagement party came soon after. Jason's family rented a fancy hall, lights, music, expensive food. Everyone dressed like they were walking a red carpet. I wore a simple black suit. When I entered, Jason's father shook my hand, politely but coldly. "Good to see you," he said, "still figuring things out?" I smiled. "Yes, sir." Jason smirked again, confident in front of his friends. And Emma didn't look at me. Not once. During dinner, someone asked Jason about his company's future. He started bragging loudly. "We're expanding soon. Big deals coming. My dad's talking with investors in Dallas." I almost choked on my drink. Because I was that investor, and they had no idea. 3 days later, the meeting happened. Jason's father walked into the conference room in Denver expecting to meet a silent investor behind a legal firm. He didn't expect to see me. When I entered, his face froze. Jason looked like he'd seen a ghost. Emma's eyes filled with shock and confusion. The lawyer cleared his throat. "Mr. Carter here represents the majority shareholder." Silence. Jason whispered, "You?" I nodded calmly. "Yes. Me." His father tried to speak, but no words came out. I slid the contract across the table. "Sign," I said quietly, "or declare bankruptcy next month." The room went cold. Jason stared at me like he didn't recognize me anymore. Emma started crying. And in that moment, I realized revenge isn't loud. It's quiet, it's slow. And when it arrives, it changes everything forever. That the real revenge hadn't started yet, because Jason still thought I'd save him. Because Emma still thought I'd forgive her, and because they still didn't know, I wasn't just taking their company, I was taking their future. Jason didn't speak for a long time after that meeting. He just sat there staring at the contract like it was written in a language he couldn't understand. His father kept wiping sweat from his forehead, whispering numbers under his breath, like prayers that wouldn't be answered. Emma kept looking between me and Jason, her face pale, like the world she believed in had cracked open. "You tricked us," Jason finally said. I leaned back in my chair. "No, I invested. You lied about being unemployed." "I never said I was unemployed," I replied calmly. "You assumed." The room went silent again. Because assumptions are dangerous things. They feel like truths until they collapse under real evidence. Jason's father tried to stand tall. "Why would you do this?" he asked. "We're family." I almost laughed. Family. The same word Emma used. The same word Jason never respected. I looked straight at him. "Family doesn't humiliate family," I said quietly. "Family doesn't laugh when someone's struggling." No one argued, because they couldn't. The deal closed 2 days later. Ownership transferred. Control shifted. And suddenly, Jason wasn't the golden boy anymore. He was an employee in a company he no longer understood. My company. I didn't fire him. Not yet. Because revenge isn't about anger. It's about lessons. The next Monday, Jason walked into the office in Houston where the company headquarters were based. Same building. Same desk. Same people. Different power. I arrived an hour later. No fancy entrance. No speech. Just quiet. The staff whispered when they saw me. Rumors had already spread. They knew the company had new ownership. They knew changes were coming. Jason stood when I entered his office. For the first time he looked small. "What do you want me to do?" he asked. I placed a folder on his desk. "Performance review," I said. He opened it slowly. His sales numbers were average. His projects incomplete. His leadership reports weak. He looked up, shocked. "This isn't fair." I met his eyes. "It's business." The same words his father used years ago when he fired workers to save profits. Jason swallowed hard. "Are you going to fire me?" I shook my head. "Not yet," Emma called that night. She was crying. "Please don't hurt Jason," she begged. "He made a mistake. He was stupid. But he's not a bad person." I listened quietly. Then I asked softly, "Did you think about me when he mocked me?" She stopped crying. Silence filled the line. I didn't know what to say," she whispered. "You could have said the truth." I replied. "You could have said I left my job because I refused fraud. You could have said I was working hard every night. You could have defended me." She started crying again. "I'm sorry," she said. But sorry came late. Very late. Weeks passed. Jason worked harder than ever, stayed late, took every assignment, tried to prove himself. For the first time in his life, he was scared of losing something. I watched quietly. One evening he came to my office. "I get it now," he said. "I was arrogant. I judged you. I thought money made me better. I'm sorry." His voice shook. And for a moment I almost forgave him. Because I remembered the kid he used to laugh with me before he met Emma, before money made him proud, before status made him cruel. But then I remembered the party, the laughter, Emma smiling, and my heart turned cold again. "Work hard," I said, "that's all." The real twist came a month later. An investor group from San Jose offered to buy half the company for a huge amount. It would make me richer than I ever imagined. Jason begged me to accept. "We can rebuild," he said. "We can grow together." I looked at him carefully. Then I asked, "Would you have helped me if I stayed poor?" He couldn't answer, because we both knew the truth. That night, Emma came to my apartment again. She didn't bring coffee this time. She didn't smile. She just stood there shaking. "Do you hate me?" she asked. I didn't answer immediately. I looked at her and remembered our childhood. Sharing food. Fighting over toys. Walking to school together. Laughing at stupid jokes. Then I remembered her silence. "I don't hate you," I said finally. "But I don't trust you anymore." She broke down crying. Because trust once broken never returns the same. But revenge wasn't finished yet, because Jason still had something he loved. Because Emma still had something she feared. And because they still didn't know. I had one final decision to make, a decision that would either destroy them completely or free me forever. Jason started arriving before everyone else after that. He'd sit at his desk with a coffee he barely touched, staring at spreadsheets like they were puzzles that could save his life if he solved them fast enough. The office had changed in small ways since I took over new systems, new managers, stricter rules, but the biggest change was invisible. Fear, not the kind that breaks people, but the kind that forces them to see who they really are. One evening, I walked past Jason's office and saw him asleep on his keyboard. The screen was filled with numbers and unfinished emails. His jacket was folded like a pillow under his head. I stood there longer than I expected, because I remembered nights like that, nights when I worked until sunrise while everyone thought I was lazy. Nights when Emma laughed with her friends while I coded alone. I almost woke him gently. Instead, I walked away. The next morning, he came into my office, nervous but determined. "I found a way to fix one of the deadlines," he said. "If we restructure payments and cut unnecessary expenses, we can recover in 6 months." I looked at his proposal. It was smart. Very smart. For the first time, I saw what Jason could have been if arrogance hadn't poisoned him. "You did good," I said. He looked shocked, like he didn't expect praise, because pride had always been easy for him. Respect was new. That afternoon, Emma came to see me at the office in Atlanta. She looked different. No makeup, tired eyes, hands shaking. "Can we talk?" she asked quietly. We sat in the conference room. She stared at the table for a long time before speaking. "I thought Jason was strong," she said. "I thought money meant security. I thought you were weak because you struggled." Her voice broke. "I didn't realize strength is silent." I didn't answer. She looked up with tears in her eyes. "You were always the better person, and I treated you like nothing." For a second I felt anger rise again, but it was softer now, quieter, because revenge had already done its job. She knew, she understood, and guilt was punishing her more than anything I could say. A week later, Jason asked to meet me outside work. We sat in a quiet diner near Phoenix. He didn't order food, just coffee. "I'm leaving Emma," he said suddenly. I stared at him. "What?" "She deserves someone better," he said. "Someone who didn't humiliate her brother. Someone who didn't chase money and forget respect." I watched his face carefully. This wasn't fear. This was regret, real regret. "I love her," he added softly. "But I ruined things. I ruined your trust. I ruined her faith. I don't deserve her." For the first time, I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt tired, because revenge, once complete, leaves emptiness behind. That night, I opened my laptop again. Another offer had arrived. A massive corporation from Miami wanted to buy the company entirely. Enough money to make me richer than I ever imagined. Enough to disappear forever. I sat there for hours. If I sold, Jason would lose his job. Emma's future would collapse. Their world would end. A perfect revenge. But would it make me happy? I thought about my childhood with Emma, sharing ice cream on hot days, fighting over TV remotes, protecting her from bullies. I thought about the night Jason apologized, and suddenly, revenge felt heavy, like carrying a stone in my chest. The next morning, I called them both to the office. They came together, nervous, silent. I slid 2 envelopes across the table. Jason's hands shook as he opened his. Promotion letter. Emma opened hers. A partnership contract for a new business division she once dreamed of starting. They stared at me in shock. "I'm not destroying you," I said quietly. "Because revenge already happened. You saw who I became without your respect, and you saw who you became without kindness." Emma started crying. Jason couldn't speak. "I'm giving you a chance," I continued. "Not because you deserve it, but because I refuse to become like you were." The room stayed silent. And for the first time, I felt free. But life doesn't end after revenge. Because forgiveness is harder than anger. Because trust takes years to rebuild. Because scars stay. And because one final truth was still waiting. A truth that would test all of us one last time. Jason held the promotion letter like it might disappear if he blinked. Emma kept reading her contract again and again, her tears falling on the paper, smudging the ink. Neither of them spoke for a long time. I didn't rush them, because sometimes silence teaches more than words. Finally, Jason stood up. His voice was shaking. "Why?" he asked. "After everything I did, why give me another chance?" I looked at him quietly. "Because I know what it feels like to be judged when you're already struggling," I said. "And I know what it feels like to be laughed at when you're trying your best. I won't become that person." Emma covered her face and cried harder. "I don't deserve you as a brother," she whispered. I didn't answer. Because forgiveness isn't about saying nice things. It's about actions over time. Months passed. Jason worked harder than anyone in the company. No shortcuts, no arrogance. He stayed late, learned new skills, admitted mistakes openly. Slowly, people stopped seeing him as the boss's son and started seeing him as a leader. Emma started her division carefully, nervous at first, but determined. She called me for advice sometimes, but never crossed a line again. She never mocked me, never joked about my past. Something inside her had changed. Something inside me had too, because revenge had burned away my anger, but it left lessons behind. One winter evening, we all met for dinner in a quiet restaurant in San Diego. No party. No loud music. Just us. Jason raised his glass slowly. "To the man I underestimated," he said, "and the brother I don't deserve." Emma added softly, "To second chances." I looked at them both, and for the first time since that humiliating night, I smiled without pain. After dinner, Jason walked with me outside. Cold wind, empty streetlights, quiet city. "I know I can't fix what I did," he said, "but I'll spend my life trying to be better." I nodded. Then I said something I never thought I would. "I believe you, because I did. Not completely, not blindly, but enough to let go." A few weeks later, another offer came bigger than any before. A massive firm from Seattle wanted to buy everything. Enough money to disappear forever. I stared at the email for a long time. Once, I would have taken it just to prove I could. Just to crush Jason's world. Just to show Emma what they lost. But revenge had already given me what I needed. Respect, truth, peace. I closed the email without replying. Because success isn't about how many people you defeat. It's about who you become. One Sunday morning, Emma came to my apartment with breakfast like she used to when we were kids. She looked nervous. "I want to ask something," she said. I nodded. She took a deep breath. "Will you come to my wedding as my brother, not as my boss, not as the rich guy, just as my brother?" For a moment, memories flooded back. Childhood laughter, school fights, shared dreams. I smiled. Of course. She hugged me tightly, crying again. And I realized something simple. Revenge feels powerful, but forgiveness feels peaceful. At the wedding, Jason stood in front of everyone and told the story, not hiding anything, not pretending. He told them how he mocked me, how he judged me, how he learned humility. People listened in silence. Then he looked at me and said, "The strongest man I know is the one who stayed quiet, worked hard, and chose kindness when he had every reason for revenge." The room clapped. Emma cried, and I stood there thinking about that night when they laughed. How small I felt, how broken, how angry, and how far I had come. After the ceremony, Emma whispered, "Are you happy?" I looked at the sky, at the lights, at the people laughing, at Jason helping an old waiter carry plates, and I said yes, because the real revenge wasn't taking their company, it wasn't showing my wealth, it wasn't making them beg. The real revenge was proving them wrong without losing myself. The real revenge was becoming stronger than their insults. The real revenge was living a life so good, their mockery became meaningless. Years later, people asked Jason how he changed. He always told the same story. About the night he mocked a man he thought was useless. About the day he learned success is quiet. About the brother who showed him mercy instead of revenge. And every time he told it, he looked at me with respect. Real respect. The kind that can't be faked. Sometimes I still remember that party. The laughter, the humiliation, the pain. But I don't feel anger anymore. Because that night gave me fire. And that fire built my future. And that future taught them a lesson they would never forget. Not through revenge, but through truth. And in the end, that was enough.